Good evening, I'm Ellie Skelly. Some of the most popular lakes in Oneida County are only possible through one of many dams. I'm standing outside of the Oneida County Courthouse where a meeting concerning the Minocqua Brewing Company's repeated zoning violations was adjourned just a few hours ago. You know, when I was a kid, one of my core memories is when my dad came to my kindergarten class and he read Frog and Toad. He had this special voice for Frog and then for Toad, and for my fellow 5-year-olds and myself, it was the best comedy act in town. People are gearing up for a performance. You can see the boats of people sitting here. Everybody is ready to go because the Minocqua Aquavets are going to be performing in about an hour.
I really like acting, and it hasn't been something that allows me to act.
Everett House School summer theater program has been closed since the pandemic. So when he found out about the Fairy Tale Network, he knew this was his big break.
I mean, I've made one person laugh, I've made 2 people laugh, and now I get to make the whole crowd.
He plays both the cat and BB Wolf in the Fairy Tale Network, a comedy that puts a fresh spin on traditional fairy tales.
There's all kinds of sports for baseball and so forth, and then the kids, when they get to high school, are familiar with that, but nothing really for the performance. So we thought this would be a good way to do it.
The play is sponsored by the Tomahawk Community Theater and is put on by 11 young actors and directed by 2 teenagers.
With kids' attention spans who just like, okay, come back now. It's just really fun to try to get them to just be interacting with you and trying to get them to, I don't know.
Interact with each other too.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I built my house out of straw.
For these kids, the stage offers an opportunity to embrace their inner drama queen.
This is good for me because it brings me out of my comfort zone, because I'm usually not good in front of a big crowd. I would usually just stand there and be like,
While also learning the ins and outs of the profession.
The whole thing about showbiz is you get to go out there and you get to be someone you aren't in real life and show other people how you could be.
From Tomahawk, Ellie Skelly, Newswatch 12.
I've had to put a lot of things on the back burner and given up a lot of things to work in childcare, so.
Elizabeth Krause is now an assistant director of a child care providing service, a path that she started at 16. What keeps her going is a dedication to her students.
You're in the grocery store. I know my husband used to get really irritated, like, you know, another kid? You know, like, how do you know all these kids? And, you know, hey, Miss Elizabeth, you know, I love that feeling.
But her job is not easy or accessible.
Childcare in itself is a very low paying field. It's a hard job. People may not think it is, but it is.
For providers like ABC Childcare, the need for an increase in funding is necessary to maintain qualified staff members and maximize an ability to provide affordable care.
The Wisconsin childcare industry has been in crisis for about 20 years, and that's why several years ago, even before the pandemic, there was a work group convened to put together an idea for how we can help stabilize the childcare industry.
The result of these efforts was the Child Care Counts program, a government subsidy that helped maintain livable wages. That program is now being defunded.
It has affected us. We did get our first payment now since it has dropped down. Basically, payments were about cut in half.
For child care providers like ABC, the support was able to provide one more reason to give these kids their everything.
We need support, you know, and again, if it's, what would an extra dollar do for a staff? An extra dollar might just make their day even a little bit. They might push a little more. They might just give a little more.
Well, for such a beautiful caterpillar, and they are beautiful to look at, but they're fairly dangerous.
Before sending plants westward, Hanson's Garden Village must inspect everything, making sure that there are no remnants of an unwelcome hitchhiker.
Spongy moth is a non-native caterpillar that we have in Wisconsin.
Spongy moths are an invasive species that copiously consume the leaves of oak, aspen, and birch trees, ultimately leaving them almost completely defoliated.
It looks like the middle of winter, except it's the middle of summer.
And while researchers introduced a foreign fungus that targets these pests, recent dry conditions are not favorable for fungus growth, leaving spongy moths to populate at an unregulated rate.
That means that the diseases that would go after spongy moth don't get traction. So I would expect potentially big problems.
Plus, their prickly hairs make them unpreferable prey for birds without long beaks.
Their natural predator would be like cuckoos. Well, I haven't seen many cuckoos. I haven't seen any cuckoos in Wisconsin.
While there's nothing yet that can completely eradicate the moths, there are ways the average person can help. Specifically by scraping off egg masses into a bucket of soapy water and leaving them for 2 days.
The world is now, so we have to be pragmatic and operate as best we can and try to be as ecologically sensitive as we can, knowing that to some extent the cow's out of the barn, the cat's out of the bag.